We're really privileged to have Thembi join us to share a really interesting story of career pivoting and what that's meant for her in a completely different framework within her current portfolio. So Thembi, before I ask you to do a short introduction, I just want to set the scene in terms of, as HR practitioners, we have a tendency to often reflect that the career that we take is it's always within that people practice, and that we either have a lattice approach or a hierarchical career journey. But Thembi actually started her career in audit. And for those of us who've been in human capital for as long as we have, we might be quite fearful of the numbers and what numbers might bring out in terms of hives and reactions. But Thembi brings with her a beautiful story of starting in audit and how she has pivoted her career to where she finds herself today as the head of digital learning at Nedbank. So Thembi, a short introduction from you, just a little bit about those wonderful careers that you've had as you have moved to where you find yourself today. So big welcome to you.
Oh, thanks, Pam. Hi, everyone. So I'm Thembi. I'm from Durban. That's where I was born and raised. I'm very blessed to still have my parents around. I'm a wife, I'm a mom. So before all of the career stuff, I'm other things as well. I'm a digital enthusiast as well. So I love all things digital. But in terms of career, so how it started was when I finished matric, I wanted to study computer science. And my mother said, hell no. She was just like, that is not going to happen. So she went to the different varsities. She wanted me to do business science, and they offered me a seat in business science. And I thought, no, that's for smart people. It's not for me. So is there something easier to do? So they said, then I can do a BCom accounting. So I was like, oh, it can't be that bad. It doesn't sound stressful. So literally, that's how I ended up studying accounting. I did my honors in accounting. And Deloitte had paid for my varsity, so I went to work for them and did my articles there. The interesting thing is, I guess, is when you start out in audit, you either know that you're going to stay or you know you're never going to stay. Yeah. And I was one of those people of, I'm never going to stay here. Audit was just not for me. People don't like auditors. And I think that's what I really didn't like. There were aspects of it that I really loved, like meeting new people. I had a new team every 3 months. Learning about new businesses, getting in from, actually, I had a shipping client, I had a fishery client, I had oil companies. So it was really interesting. But I knew that's not what I wanted to do with my life, and I wanted something more purposeful. And I'd actually seen a lot of young people who needed help, either with bursaries, and they came through the doors coming for interviews for bursaries, trying to find jobs. And I used to sit on those panels. And I would realize that actually some people just don't have the confidence. They would get the opportunity. We only interviewed the top, students anyway who were getting A's in their studies. But in terms of help, they really needed the help. And so that's what I wanted to do with my life. Sorry, I'm getting some feedback from somebody.
Yeah, me too. Picking that up as well.
Thanks. So at the end of my articles, anyway, I had to make a decision of what exactly am I going to do. And I met an audit partner who said to me, if you want to give back and do all of the stuff that you want to do with young people, you need the skills for it. And so he said to me, you can make small transitions. So everybody looks at my career jump and they think it was huge. It was incremental. So I moved from audit to audit learning first. And I stayed there to learn more about learning. And that's where I got actually my feet in learning. And I stayed there for a while as an audit manager. And then I moved afterwards. And I said, actually, I don't want to be linked to audit anymore. Because in audit learning, that's what you're teaching. You're teaching other people how to audit. And then I just wanted to get deeper into the learning world and explore more and figure out other things and other different ways I could add value. And so then I made the jump into HR space. So it's the short story of how I ended up on this side of the fence.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful story, but it's obviously driven by certain, I suppose, mindsets that you bring into everything that you do. So, for context for everyone joining us today, I met Thembi probably about 5 months ago, Thembi, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And what I found in all my engagements with you was just the ease and the ease to go into beautiful conversations. You and I often reflect in meetings, we just don't have enough time to get into the meat of everything we want to do. But what strikes me is the mindset and the different shifts that you made in your career, ignited by those mindsets. And you and I have spoken about them, but do you want to share with us what they are and what they mean to you in the context of who is Thembi, and so we can all get to know you a little better?
No, definitely. I think there's three things that stand out. So I always say growth mindset is such a buzzword that means A right now to everybody. But for me, what it's always meant is a desire to learn more so I can do more or do better. So that's a mindset I've always applied. When I moved into the HR space, the biggest question I used to get was, so when are you getting an HR qualification? And my answer was like, never. No, guys, I've studied. I have skills that are transferable. Let's work on that. I can add what I don't know. I will learn. I will go sit with teams. And that's because I like to learn also by doing and sitting with people and gaining from their knowledge. So the biggest thing for me was just being clear from a purpose perspective as well of, I know I come from a business kind of environment and the business side of the working world. And I'm in a people side and there's things I'm going to need to learn, but that's where I want to be. And so I'm going to work hard and put energy where it's required to get there. And so for me, that's always been the growth mindset of, actually, I'll go learn. So I went to UCT and I did a training and development management certification.
So you gave in, right?
Yes, I gave in because I realized actually growth mindset means you learn more to do better. And so I did. I went and did that. I did a coaching certificate in executive coaching. And then I did my master's in leadership as well. So I did do things, but I had to first figure out, who do I want to be in this learning world or HR world within the financial services sector? What is the brand? Where do I want to dig my feet in? And then once I had found it, it was easier to then go, I'm not going to do a generic HR qualification, but I'm going to do the things that interest me, and that was leadership and coaching. The other thing that has really helped and shaped my career pivot has been curiosity. So actually, when I moved from audit learning to normal learning, I started and I went, at the time I was working for Seasons Aluba Gowodo, and I went to the CEO and I said to him, I want to do learning, but I want to do learning for the PAs, for cleaners, for the people who are not noticed in the business. And he was like, why? And I was like, at the end of the day, the people who that you first meet when you come into the business, a receptionist, how great would it be if she felt like she mattered and that her development actually mattered? So then he gave me the carte blanche to do it. And that's how also I could, practice writing my own material, developing it, doing design, starting in something that wasn't so scary as well. But it's childlike curiosity for me as well, because I feel like when we're older, we're so tuned to this is how you do things. And for me, it's always going back to, but how does this work? How do you put together this puzzle? How was it actually put together? I'm a lover of Rubik's Cubes and solving them. So I try and apply that same kind of thinking in my life and going, what else could I learn and how else could I do it? It's actually led me down the path of digital now in terms of blockchain, automation, and things like that. It's just been curious about what is everybody doing out in the world and how can I learn more and do more with that? Yeah.
And before you go to the third, the third trigger for you, I'm reflective of all the things you have achieved living into your curiosity mindset, and when I listen to you, I sense the most amazing energy that comes through as well. So I'm almost I'm going to put it out there and say, I'm saying that there's a curiosity that goes with an energy, and that I don't think that, I think some of us think I'm curious, cool, but it's the energy to drive it. And so what keeps it going is that flywheel momentum, right?
It is, and you need that energy behind your curiosity because we all could be curious, right? And sit there and Google things. But it's what do you do now that you've Googled it and found out about it? And so for me, that's always been the thing. Even just the jump to a formal digital leadership role has been for me. So now that I know all of this, because I did recently a master's in digital and innovation, I was like, so what do I do with it? So I was curious and I did the master's, I finished, but it was like, so what now? Where can I apply this? Where can I change the world? All of those things coming and putting them together. So the energy that goes with the curiosity is so critical because then you're going to sit and know a lot of things, but never apply. And that for me is the trick and the thing to get back into business in terms of making people do the practice of learning.
Yes.
So I'm in charge of learning platforms and I love that I am. But I always say to people, it's one thing to send someone to a digital platform and go, hey, you have all of the stuff, go and learn. But we also need to create the experiences that give people exposure to do things with the learning that they've gotten. Otherwise, it's not a skill. Otherwise, we've given them knowledge and we should be happy that that's what we've given them. So for me, it's just that, put the energy for people there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I mean, imagine if we were all in the worlds that we operate within and the influence that we have, that we were able to create that excitement, that energy around taking the learning into something that's far more practical and therefore drives value and impact ultimately.
Yes, because that's what we want at the end of the day. I love that I work in banking right now and I've been in financial services in general. But in all honesty, if we're going to say we're going to change customer experience, it's not going to change by people having the knowledge of automation, having the knowledge of digital and digitalization. It's actually them going, what could I do better? From an empathy, even just an empathy skill. How could that change how I interact with customers, listen to them, ask them different questions, and provide a different kind of service? So it's just, if we think about it that way, we're really changing the end game that we're all wanting. Yeah.
So we've heard you talk about growth mindset and we've heard you talk about curiosity. What's the third?
The third big thing that I realized, so like I said, everyone asked me, so when are you getting an HR qualification? My answer is like always no. I had to ask myself, what are the skills I do have that make me efficient and capable in the space that I am while I keep adding into my toolbox? And what I realized is actually I have consulting skills. Audit is an interesting space because you come towards the end of a financial year and the business has already run. But literally the first thing you do when you arrive in an audit is go and ask everybody in the business, so how do you run the business? And you get the file that has all of the pictures and you go, is this still true? One of my first clients was Toyota. So one, I know nothing about making cars. At 21, I even knew worse. So it was going in and just going, asking the right questions, listening, being curious about someone's business and the things that they do, and going, you know more than I, what can I learn? And then from a consulting perspective, being able to say, here are the risks that we've identified in your business, and these are the things that we think you could apply differently. So I had to actually hone in and go, I'm pivoting my career, but what do I already have in my toolbox? And what I identified was, actually, I have these consulting skills and they're so relevant in the HR space, not just from a business perspective with interacting with stakeholders, but from a people perspective, because consulting is just human at the core. It's listening, it's questioning, it's calming down the wanting to give answers, but asking more questions and asking good questions as well. So I had to identify that that's what I have. And then how do I apply it really well in my space? Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to repeat that because I love it. That consulting is human at its core. I mean, and when we think about how we in business today with and immaterial of which hat we wear, but that we're always in a space where we're engaging, where we're connecting, where we are leading, pitching, convincing, influencing. And I mean, in every single one of those instances, it's the humanness that ultimately tips where that conversation's going to go in the context of what you're driving in the organization. So yeah, absolutely love that. You said it was also about interest, and there's, I don't know if Mike Franks is on the call, but he's one of our colleagues at LRMG, and I always remember him saying there's two things. The one is that you must be interested, and then he said, but you also have to be interesting. That people should need to want to feel the urge to engage with you. So I mean, and how does that play out for you or how did that play out for you in those days or today?
It's been a great shift for me, and it's also been a mindset shift as well. So gosh, I started working when I was 20, and so I had to, you learn very quickly that you're getting into corporate, and I worked in audit, so it was like you wear black, white, and grey to work, maybe navy, if you're pushing it. And so at the beginning, it was, who am I? So this interesting bit, it was, who am I in this space? Am I going to assimilate? And what I realized being interesting and how I've grown to mature in my understanding of myself and my own self-awareness is being interesting is being yourself. Assimilating isn't it, because you cannot be consistently fake at some point, but the true you will show up, and you just need to be more you with skill. So that someone said to me one day that authenticity is a wonderful thing, but also know that you have gaps and things to learn and things that feed into. But what I've always tried to do is stay true to myself, because I can't fake that. But it is understanding the spaces I'm in and how I show up as my true self within those spaces. And for me, I think if we stick to being interesting within yourself, then everybody will be great, because then we come with our own uniqueness to the table, and that creativity that we always want to, that problem solving, will come up so naturally if everyone is trying to just be themselves and not be the next person, which is scary because it can come up so easily to want to assimilate in corporate.
Yeah, very much. It's that unnecessary pressure, and I love the bravery with which you talk to us today to say, but don't fold to that. Be true, be you.
Yes, because then it puts so much pressure. I had actually a conversation with someone this week who's taking a sabbatical, and their biggest thing is they're at a point where they feel like they've been somebody for so long, and now they just need to find themselves. And the quicker we realize that, the better for all of us. Yeah,
for sure. So we've heard growth mindset, curiosity, consulting. We've heard the pivot from the audit into a bit of audit learning, audit management, and now in this beautiful world of digital learning. So how do you, I want to go to your audit skills first. How does how do the numbers and how does your financial acumen enable and arm you today to have different conversations with business or partners in business?
Oh, it's been such a blessing. So also a blessing has been working in financial services. My stakeholders have been people who come from similar background. Where I worked before, so at Nedbank, I looked after finance for a very long time. So honestly, my finance background made life so much better, because it was easy to start the conversations with metrics, because they got metrics. They wouldn't get, from the get-go, the things that they call fluffy. So they wouldn't get the need, for example, to have empathy as a power skill. So it was actually quite interesting when we came up with 9 power skills, which are behavioral skills. It was easy to come up with the communication, collaboration. Empathy came as a 10th because it took a whole year for the business to, get on board. But they could agree with metrics. They could see the numbers. They could see the engagement in people with these behavioral skills, the things we usually call soft. They could see the metrics in terms of when you look at your net promoter score within the teams, they could see that it's increasing. That actually learning these skills of communication, collaboration, working in virtual teams, they could then see the straight line to that's the business impact. So it made life so much easier, because then I wasn't fighting for the value of learning. When we spoke to them about let's do something on data, and then I said to my business, let's also bring in actual business problems that you have. Let's fix them after these people have learned these skills. Give them the opportunity. If they break things, they break things, but it's not monumental things. Then they could see the numbers. You start to see actual penalties from SARS going down, actual, data numbers improving. It made life so much easier to be able to start with the metrics first, because that's what business actually focuses on.
Yeah.
And then go, but now do you see the line between investing in your people and the business impact that you want? That is the people who do the work. So if you invest there, that's where you're going to see the benefit. So it's really helped me with that, because it's like speaking the business language and not coming with people plan.
Yes.
Nobody hears people plan. It's like my business stakeholders, their eyes slightly glaze over. When you start talking about people plan and talent and 9-box grids, their eyes completely glaze over. But if you say to them, we are doing succession planning because the risk is here and there and there. If we don't, they hear risk, they hear numbers. Yeah.
So Radashni's made a comment in the chat just in terms of that you can't, her view is that you can't practice as a practitioner or in HR or L&D without business acumen. That's what builds the credibility as a strategic business partner. And I mean, to the point, Radashni, we're not going to go into the Ulrich and other, but I mean, that was what he was hypothesizing all those years ago. Was a very long time ago where he first spoke about HR as a true partner to business. But I believe if we're not curious enough and we're currently in that discipline, it's what drives us to go and find out more about the business of doing business rather than being almost protected by the discipline of HR or any people practice, which is really such a beautiful opportunity for HR practitioners today. Find out more, learn more, be curious, have a growth mindset about the business, because it completely changes your narrative, as Radashni said, as a strategic partner.
And it changes the language that you speak. So I had this scary encounter with, one of the learning people that I was speaking to, and I asked, so where's your business strategy? Because they were listing all of these things that they were doing. And I was like, great, so proud of you. Where's the business strategy? So that we can just check, it's to a sense check of the things that you are doing. How do they achieve the business strategy? Because that should be your first, start. And then the response was, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the business strategy. And yes, I was shocked and I tried to hide it because it was more a developmental conversation to have. But it was, in actual fact, it doesn't matter what you do. The activities don't matter. If the starting point of all your conversations is, as a business, this is what you're trying to achieve, and therefore this is how I'm enabling that, you've lost people. You could have done the greatest work in terms of having graduates come in and increasing that and having a nice talent grid. It doesn't matter if you cannot align it back to the strategy and speak about it clearly in terms of how you're enabling your business stakeholders to achieve business goals, because that's critical.
Such a great point. So how then do you, again, using your previous career, how do you use those skills then to build relationships with the different stakeholder groups? Because it's easy to say it in talking to a leader of business, perhaps the financial metrics, and that narrative excites him or her. What do you do with the L&D practitioners? How do you excite and ignite them?
So for me, it always goes back to being me. And that's with every other person that I meet. I am as curious about people as I am about work, about digital, about what is happening in the world. I actually had a very interesting conversation with someone I used to work with, and we were speaking about what happens for me in my brain when someone is upset and they behave badly at work. My response is curiosity, because I'm like, what is it that I don't know about what you're currently going through for you to show up like that? And so I take a step back all the time and go, we'll have a different conversation once you have settled, for me to maybe possibly understand what is going on for you, because I clearly don't know. And so for me, I apply the same curiosity to people, to relationships, and I found that there's an authenticity in myself and curiosity about people to be how I build relationships. I'm not a big extrovert, so you won't find me being the, the best person in a bar full of people kind of person. But I believe in one-on-one relationships. I believe that's the depth of where relationships lie, and I apply that with everybody. And in the learning space, even HR actually as a whole practice, it's always been, I believe you have something that I can learn from, and I'm as willing to share with you. And to just go in with that there's something I can learn from this person. I'm curious about them, their experiences, and actually what can I learn and how can I then feed into them. Yeah.
So how do you take what you have experienced in your life and bring it into what you do with your digital learning platforms? How do you infuse all of this to change that experience?
Oh, so the lovely thing I love about my job title is it's huge. So it is head of digital design, head of digital learning and experience design. So it gives me carte blanche on so many things because the first thing I always speak about in all my meetings is, but what's the employee experience? And how are we improving that? And even if someone wants to create a learning pathway on our digital learning platform, my question is always, and the experience, how is that going to be? We can go back to the clicks, because people want to know how many clicks is it going to get there, because that's the logical and easiest thing to answer. But I always say that digital platforms are there to enable something. They're there to enable something. What is the something? Because it's like going to a banking app, for example. You go there because you want to send money, you want to pay, and you want it to be easy for you to pay. So why are people going to the digital learning platforms? If we go and we're simple about things, that's what I try to infuse in the conversations, to go, we can't sell a platform for the sake of a platform, but we can sell it as an enabler for people to achieve their goals and their personal ambitions. We can talk to them about, this is something that you can do without requiring your line manager's approval to now go learn something that interests you. Because for me, it always goes back to, gosh, if I started an audit and the world of work was, you can't learn something that isn't in line with your current job, I wouldn't be where I am today. So for me, that notion doesn't make sense. And so for me, what I always try to infuse is, let's be realistic that people have different aspirations than where we see them today. And how do we enable that? How are we making that real for them? And understanding that when people go and engage with our digital learning platforms, they're trying to grow. How are we enabling that growth for them? And just bringing it back to that. Then the experience is easy as well to come from there.
For sure, for sure. Nadine has made a comment in the chat to say that drives platform adoption too, when it's easy for the users to use and access, as well as that it's useful and relevant. And that's what keeps people coming back, right?
Yes, and meaningful. Gosh, the biggest battle we had to get through just from a mentality perspective is that it is more valuable for me to go get a degree in this country than it is for me to go through a LinkedIn learning course. But that's because we've said to people, that's where it ends. But actually, the truth is, even if now with my 2 masters, I love them, it was a great experience, I learned something. Then there's the application. As long as we bring people to the understanding that the digital learning platform and the things that you do, that self-led learning, can be part of a learning experience. And we get back to building learning experiences instead of saying to people, go forth and conquer, then we're going to make meaningful contributions. Because learning experiences then bringing back to people to go practice what you learned, go do something with your skill, give them projects, secondments, things to actually do. Then we give people the growth. Someone in my team always says, from a learning perspective, we're so good at curating learning on digital platforms now that we've lost the essence of learning. that is just a single part of someone's learning experience and not its entirety. It's an enabler for a certain portion, and then they need to go do something after that. Yeah.
That's profound, because that is where the emphasis sort of goes with digital learning, right? How many learning paths do we have? And let's track how many are completed relative to your comment. It's about the practical application. So how do you bring that back into how you enable your teams, Thembi, around thinking differently? So I mean, I'm intrigued to see how your growth mindset and curiosity is being experienced by your colleagues and your team members.
I think what I always try to do with this growth mindset, the curiosity and the business lens that I always look at things with is, but what is the business impact we're trying to achieve? The business impact isn't that we have great numbers of engagement on our digital platforms, number of pathways, journeys, consumption, number of learning hours. They must translate to so what for the business. And so if we have people, you can say 1,000 people who've now gone and completed an automation pathway, how many things have you automated? If they've gone into digital, how many people, how many leaders now understand digital and are not blockers for people? If it's data, how many models have we built? What have we done with the data? Are we actually looking at it and going, how do we commercialize this? Because if we go back to what are we trying to do with all of this learning? Yes, we're trying to enable people to grow in their careers, but let's also measure that. Yeah. How many people have gone and learned and been able to pivot their careers internally, externally? How many people have gotten promotions? How many people have gotten different experiences? And it's not always about hierarchical growth. It can be lateral growth. But what are those things that we're measuring? And are we measuring the right things? So that's what I'm always trying to infuse, that can we not measure the activity because that's easy? Can we also measure the things that add value and impact for our people and for our business?
Yeah, for sure. I know that Paul's joined on our chat now, and he's the lead for value and impact in LRMG. So I would imagine that, oh, there he's written something. Turning the potentiality of the new skill into the actuality of application. Both potentiality and actuality is important. You can just hear him talking about value and impact there. Thank you for that, Paul.
Yes, definitely. So just to share quickly, so I love, and how I moved into digital is I started focusing a lot on digital programs, and then I was like, actually, I can make a bigger impact somehow in the world. But a lovely story was a lady who was in one of my programs, and she learned automation, and it was low code, no code stuff. It wasn't fancy things. It was low code, no code. But she was able to automate work with the help of her team that used to take her 2 weeks to do. And after they built this thing that automated the work, it took a minute.
Wow, a minute.
And a minute. The scripts would run, and it took a minute to do work that used to take her manually to go through people's things and do these recons. It used to take her 2 weeks. And she was so happy because she was like, this was not meaningful work to her. Yes, she was happy to have a job and get a salary on the 20th, but it was not meaningful work for her. And it was actually tedious, and it was holding her back from the curiosity to go, what can I learn? What can I do? And now that she was able to do that, she actually became the person who used to go to other teams and go, hey, I think you're doing something similar to me. We can do this differently. I might not have all of the skills, but I think if I could fix my world, we can fix yours too. And then it becomes this ripple effect in business in terms of learning is a practical thing. The application of it is a practical thing that can change not just business outcomes, but also personal outcomes for people.
Yeah, and I mean, just to that ripple, imagine if everyone who went through some form of learning intervention was able to bring that impact into the world of work today. It would be absolutely unbelievable, right? Just in terms of even the innovation aspect, as we look for the small iterative things to be able to touch and do.
It would be phenomenal. And that's what we're trying to do every day. I guess that's why we're in the world of learning, we're in the world of HR. It's what can we do differently to change how things happen around us every day. And then it's touching one person at a time. And that's why I'm like how I am with relationships with people, going as one person at a time. I can't change the whole world all at once, but I can change someone's life all at once. I can sit and listen to someone. I can help them to creatively solve their business problems. I can ask them meaningful questions one person at a time, and that ripple effect will get the results that we need. Yeah.
Thembi, I seem to recall when you and I first met, we spoke about some of the conversations that you were having, and this is not, I mean, so this is in your previous life too, but when you bring in that business lens, business responds to you differently. So do you want to just share a story or two just around that in terms of what reaction you get as a L&D practitioner?
Oh, it's been interesting. The journey's been really interesting because especially coming into a new relationship with a stakeholder, they go, oh, we've heard everything from HR. That's usually the first thing, that, oh, we've done all of the things in learning. There's nothing different that's going to happen. Okay. That's great. Let's go back to your strategy. What are you trying to achieve? And listening. I always find that my stakeholders like to talk about themselves. They like to talk about their business. They like to talk about their achievements. And so what I've always found is once I let them start to speak and go, so how do we make that possible? And linking to what are you trying to achieve? Then it changes how they realize that you're approaching, because my approach has never been, these are the things from an HR practice that we're trying to achieve. Like I said, honestly, people's eyes glaze over when you start talking about people plans because they feel like it's something imposed on them. Well, that's how my stakeholders have always been. But I've realized that when I go back to what are you trying to achieve, and that I'm here from a people perspective to help you get there, then it's a different conversation. Then it's, oh, you're in my team. And I've literally had to explain to other people that I'm in HR. I'm not in business.
Yeah.
Because now it ends up with the lines going, no, but you're on my team, with the stakeholder going, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not responding to anything until Thembi comes in and tells you what needs to happen from a people perspective. But it had to be a relationship thing from the start, in that I'm interested in what you're interested in. Yeah. And then the consistency that you need to apply to that, to always deliver on the promise of I'm interested in what you're interested in. And I'm here from the business holistic perspective as well. And then I will hold you accountable as my stakeholder if you're now veering off. The things that you want to achieve must be in line with what the business is trying to achieve holistically. And then just delivering consistently as well. Because it's one thing to start the relationship well and they get onto your side, but I've also realized that it's just being present, being mindful of, I said I will do this and I did it. And now you can see the results. And then going back to the data, decision making is critical. Yeah.
And so it's a lovely segue into, as we sort of move into the last 10 minutes of the convo, how did your financial background ignite or not you when you were starting to look at data and the numbers and the interpretive component of this data?
A lot of people think it would excite me because, you come from numbers and people think that's the stuff that drives you. I think as data has evolved and how we utilize it and the insights, that's what's been exciting for me. The numbers themselves aren't always going to be exciting, but when you can tell a meaningful story from the data that you're looking at, then it starts to, make sense. And then you can have proper conversation. When you just show people numbers, it makes no sense. There's nothing exciting about it. But where I used to work before, they have this great thing that didn't feel so great when it came through, which was the data visualization app, Vizia. But when it came through, it wasn't great. But the great thing that you could do is correlate performance to learning, for example, and go, if I look at my highest achievers, do they have the highest number of learning hours? then you can tell a meaningful story there and go, if I look now at my low performers, do they have low learning hours? Then you can tell a good story to business and go, if you want performance, people need to learn more. If you want to be a high performer within the business, you need to learn more. So for me, it's not the numbers themselves, but the things that you can draw from the numbers, the stories you can tell, the influence you can have by saying to the individual and to the business that if the result that you want is high performance, the lever is learning and the data is telling you. I'm not lying. I'm not making it up. You can look at the numbers. They back up what I'm saying. Then it makes a difference. Then you start to look at from a skill perspective of, if we look at the learning hours, if we look, the investment is in data, digital automation. Are those the things that we're seeing in business? Then you're able to correlate to that. Then the data makes sense. Then the data, helps you make better decisions going forward. So I'm not excited by the numbers. I'm excited by the story behind the numbers. Yeah.
Beautiful. And therefore, the telling the story behind the numbers goes back to your consulting skill to be able to share that and get people excited about the value and impact that data is ultimately telling, or the story that it's telling us. So I'm going to ask if there's anyone who's got some questions to pop those in the chat while we move into our last couple of minutes. Nadine, I've seen you've popped camera on. Is there anything I've missed in the chat? Go for it.
There's been a lot of comments in the chat. So, I just thought we could just pause and maybe lift some up, but also maybe allow some voices.
Lovely.
Pam and Thembi, if that's okay. Maybe some cameras as well.
Very happy.
So if anybody would like to ask a question, please feel free to put your camera on. Otherwise, I will lift up in the chat. So, okay, so Radashni has hopped off. She had some beautiful contributions to make.
There's a great one here from Omri.
Yes.
I'm going to put that to you, Thembi. He says, how do L&D and talent teams better partner to create opportunities for the application of learning and career advancements?
I think one, technology helps, right? So I'm going to punt technology because that's the space that I'm in. So I'm loving that technology is coming along and giving us platforms that, create talent marketplaces. I always say, and I bring this to banking, that we always say that when I go to a bank, for example, I know I have money and I want to use it to in the best way possible. I actually don't care that the bank is separated into retail, into investments, into what. I actually don't care. I want my money going to the best investment. And I think the best way for us to help people to get to those places is for us within the HR practice to start working in the same way. To go, when someone comes to HR, they have a particular thing that they want. When business comes to partner with HR, they have particular things that they want to achieve. If we work together instead of the silos, because we say business has silos, HR has many silos.
Yeah.
If we start to work together and go, actually, it's not a learning thing. It's not a talent management. It's not a performance enablement thing. It's an HR practice. It's a people practice thing.
Yeah.
And then we go to business together and real together, not fake together, real together. In that's what we're presenting back to business. I think we can make such big differences in how our people experience us and how business experiences us, because then we're not talking about people plans and then going, oh, but somebody else is supposed to be in this meeting. OD is supposed to be in the meeting. No. We would have thought about that before.
Yeah.
To know that we're coming with as a people practice to business, then we're not going to be looking for people within meetings to deliver what we, want to deliver. And also just being curious across our different specializations. For me, the curiosity came one because I knew nothing about all of the specializations in HR. So I went to learn as much as I can, from talent to OD to everything. But if we apply the same thing and just go as a people practice and collaborate ourselves, I think we can make such big differences for our people. Instead of just, sending an email and go, but that's not for me. That's not an HR admin thing. It's a learning thing. So just please contact your learning person. The person wanted help. Let's help the person. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Such a stunning lens. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, the analogy also speaks to the idea of skills as a currency, which we strongly believe. And certainly in the financial services space, it echoes even more. We are our own investments and should be seen as an investment within the business.
Yes, always, always.
Oh, lovely.
And then we have Krista saying we need a mentality of never wait for an opportunity, be prepared for when the opportunity arrives.
Sure.
Oh, that is so critical. Someone said, one of these Instagram videos, you need to be at the train station when the train arrives. You can't still be chasing there or standing because you're never going to catch. And so you need to be prepared. You need to be ready. Whatever that preparation is for you, the part of it for me, growth mindset, curiosity, understanding what's already in your toolbox to get you to that bus stop, the train, train station, whatever it is, for that opportunity to find you in the right space. That's critical for me. Yeah.
Beautiful. We've seen Caro put on her camera too. Caro, have you got a question, or you just want to say hi to an old friend?
That one too, but it's not really a question, but more of a statement, because being one of the people that always sits in the back end and overflooded with all of this data and people completions and all of these learning activities that are happening, having to hear somebody talk about, okay, now that you've learned, actually make a plan for somebody, for these people to actually practice this, because then that's where you actually get the value out of it. So even though people are measuring, but they're measuring the knowledge in a sense that yes, our people have these skills simply by the fact that they actually clicked on a mark complete button on a course. So truly, to have somebody voice that out to say this is what's missing, this is the gap between what you're trying to get to and what you currently have, just makes yeah, thank you.
Oh, thanks, Carol. We will win the gap.
Win the gap. That's our new hashtag, Thembi.
Yeah.
Anything else, Nate, from the chat?
Yeah, we've got Krista's actually she's popped into the chat quite a lot of interesting comments, and her last one here says 70-20-10 has to be an integrated approach. 10 without 70 and without the 20 is just knowledge training or training.
Basics,
Very
Krista.
true.
I'm glad you are hearing this thing, because in a world of tech, it's easy to be blindsided by all these fancy things and go, we're moving to metaverse, we're moving to AR, VR. Those are all lovely things. I love them. I'm exploring all of them. But the core of it is we learn by doing. And that's why I'm all for the childlike curiosity, because I was saying to Pamela, I used to hold frogs in my hand, go, what happens? What happens when you're here and no longer on the floor? And we need to get back to that. We need to go back to the doing. People don't just learn through our pathways, our nice, beautiful pathways, and, micro learning and all those fancy things. They learn by actually doing. And when are we getting back to that? And people learn with other people. That's why you play with other children when you're small. We just need to play together more as grown-ups within the corporate world and share more with each other. Yeah.
So true. And the impact that COVID has had on our ability to play with other people, even that impromptu right there, right now, we've lost that. So you've got to intentionally seek that out, both in terms of the peer connection, but as you say, in terms of learning too.
Yes,
Thembi, it's
definitely.
been... Oh.
No. I was just saying, yes, definitely. We should be able to tap someone and go, I don't understand what's happening here. Can you quickly explain? Now you need to intentionally call and ask for time. Yeah.
I think also, sorry, Pam, the fact that we also a lot of us work remote and hybrid, the ability to create those spaces where you can interact and you can have conversations and hear different opinions and views on topics that you've learned together. I think there's such value in that, as well. And it is, as you say, Pam, we've lost that human connection and that interaction. And, it's something that COVID caused, the 2 years of COVID. So.
Yeah, just what we're doing today for this hour in and of itself is peer learning, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Thembi, we really are immensely grateful to you just to bring the story to life it's our first collab with you. We have 2 more planned for early next year, and this is just setting the scene for what is to come. And Thembi very kindly allowed us to put her LinkedIn profile in the chat, so please feel free to reach out to her, chat her direct, yeah, and just lean into some more of the nuggets. But more than that is just Thembi's amazing energy. It's just, when they say energy is contagious, you epitomize that for me. I love going into conversations with you. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Pam, and the invite and the opportunity to just chat.
No, you're welcome. As we said this morning, we could go on for hours and hours, but we won't. Well, we can. Everyone else can leave.
Yes.
One last opportunity for any questions from the audience. I think Michael is going to pop a survey code in the chat as well for you, if you don't mind, to give us your feedback on the experience and ideas you have for future collabs. So yeah, wrapping up with Omri's comment, like in show business, leave them wanting more. You're definitely leaving us wanting more, Thembi, for sure.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We can always connect. There's 2 more sessions coming.
For sure.
It's like watching series one episode, and now we're waiting for the next episode to come. Thembi, sure. I mean, we've learned so much from you, as Pam said, and just, you know, how authentic you are, and, you know, the elements around empathy, but bringing such strong business skills and acumen into play as well. You know, from my side, you are an immense powerhouse, but with such humility, and, you know, it just makes you such an amazing, beautiful person. And we are so grateful that you gave us this hour, and that you're willing to share more with us. Is just, can't thank you enough, basically.
Thank you, Nadine. Thank you.